We are off. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth Emery.
Thank you very much for having me.
Happy. We'll give you guys a peek under the tent. It is Monday morning here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. It is just past 11:15. I want to say thank you so much for holding space for me and the podcast and the guests and making time in your busy schedule in your morning to come on here and allow for me to better understand who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do. So thank you so much for holding space for me in the podcast.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So I'll give the listeners a bit of our background. It's very small, our background, but to give them a kind of context of how we got to here today. So a few months ago, I forget what month it was, but I took part in I guess like a panel speech or a talk at this exact address, and Elizabeth happened to be attending, and I want to say thank you so much for coming up afterwards, introducing yourself and saying what you said. It means so much to me that you did that. So I had done my talk, and a few others spoke as well, and then Elizabeth took time out of her day again to pause and come up and say, like, thank you so much. And I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was very flattering and very nice and kind. And I thought, man, this is understanding just then what you do, very, very kind of surface level. I was like, man, I have to get her on the podcast. And here we are. So thank you so much. So fill the gaps in for me. I understand very little about what you do. I understand you have a blog. I understand it's now become kind of what you do. It's kind of like an identity piece for you a bit. So fill in the gaps for myself and the listeners of who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Of course. Well, my name's Elizabeth, or Lizzie. I am a food blogger and recipe developer. My work has a strong vegan focus, strong plant-based. I have a blog, vancouverwithlove.com, and I
shout out.
Yeah, a little plug in there.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I share recipes with my readers every week. It's usually recipes or sort of plant-based how-to guides, or even occasional plant-based travel guides and things like that.
I have to jump in quickly. I'm intrigued by the shift we've seen, and I say we as just general population, that we've seen in the term vegan kind of get curbed a bit, and now plant-based has seemed to take over. Is there a difference? Educate me, and this is a sincere question. Is there a difference between someone who is vegan as a lifestyle and someone who is plant-based, or is it 6 of one, half dozen of another?
Truthfully, I think it's a little bit open to interpretation.
Okay.
I personally identify as vegan because I am an ethical vegan. Those are my reasons for being vegan are ethical. I think plant-based tends to be more of a more of a slightly
like broad stroking?
Yeah, like a little more of a label-less term.
Okay.
Which sounds a bit ridiculous because it is a label. But lots of people who eat plant-based, I think, occasionally would still incorporate some animal products, like some honey or even some meat or fish or dairy or something, into their diets.
Oh, okay. I was unaware of that. So there's some gray area there.
Yeah, I honestly think plant-based has been shifted towards a little more than the term vegan lately because it incorporates more people. I think, rightly or wrongly, there's a slight perception that vegan is a bit of a judgmental term, and plant-based is a little more broad spectrum. Kind of anyone can incorporate that into their diet a bit more. So I try to kind of jump between the two terms because for me, like I said, I will always be vegan. But I think plant-based is a phrase that encourages people to kind of check out my blog and things like that and think, oh yeah, I could try those recipes. They're not just for vegans.
Right. So you feel like vegan is for lack of a better term, like an extreme, again, not to use the word label, but a label in regards to how someone lives their life, whereas plant-based, it may allow for a bit of a gray area and a bit of kind of nebulous with what that actually means and how it shows up in someone's life.
I think so, yeah. Unfortunately, I think vegan can be perceived as being a bit extreme sometimes, which is a shame. I think that said, given the kind of current climate, I think there is a big shift towards a lot of people going vegan. It is becoming very, very popular. But for me, I want to encourage as many people as possible to eat, I guess, as few animal products. And if using the term plant-based helps that and makes it feel more accessible for people,
then you're all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
help me understand what you were doing before this was your reality. I'm always intrigued by, like, for myself, I was selling beer before I became a
Wow.
consultant. I was selling beer before I had a podcast. Like, these are the things that I find so interesting, the backstory of like who you were, 4 years ago or 3 years ago. Or how long have you been doing this now? Like full time?
Full time, I would say just over a year.
Oh, amazing. Good for you. So then what did you find yourself doing? Obviously you were doing this as well, kind of on the side hustle, if you will. So what were you doing before? What was your 9 to 5, if you will?
Oh gosh, a multitude of things. I have no culinary background or anything like that.
Okay, I love that. That's amazing, isn't it?
I kind of love it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the food blog really came from my life experience of being vegetarian since I was 4, and then vegan for about 7 years now.
Okay.
But prior to this, I did a ton of things. I worked in events, historical research. That was my last job before I was doing this. My degree is in history and English. I worked for the BBC quite a long time ago. I worked as a PA, admin.
My father always says, I should have asked you what you didn't do before, because there's so many things that you did do. Do you know what I mean? Is there any one of those roles and positions that you held that you feel today you're able to draw on, whether it's experience or organization or whatever it may be, that you feel like, wow, I'm so blessed that I had that one job with that one company? Or do you feel like everything you've done up until now has only prepared you for your current reality? Or was there one or two things that really stick out? They're like, man, if I didn't do that, I don't think I would have the confidence or have the wherewithal to be doing what I'm doing right now.
That's a really good question. I do feel it's a combination of all of them, I think. But that said, I mentioned working for the BBC. That was my first job out of university, and I found it very challenging. I found the stress a lot to deal with. It was a busy job in central London in the UK, but that was a bit of a baptism of fire, I think. It prepared me for so much that's come since in terms of organisation and dealing with people, I think. So I would probably credit that one for
Sorry, and what was your actual title, and what were you finding yourself doing there?
Right, of course. I was assistant to someone who's quite high up in production management for radio drama.
Oh, okay.
I know. How random.
Yeah, but how very British. I feel like if anyone's going to do radio drama,
Yeah.
it's going to be the Brits. I don't. We haven't discussed this, so you wouldn't know. But I lived in London, like London proper, for 2 years, from 2004 to 2006. Like SW1 was my postcode, so I was like in Pimlico. I don't know if you know Pimlico, near Victoria Station.
Yeah, I lived in Stockwell, just
southeast.
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah. So I have an affinity for all things that are London, and I personally learned so much from my time there as well in regards to what I'm doing now. And there's so much going on in that city when you look at things like food and culture. Do you touch base much now with? So where is home for you?
Home is technically Bournemouth, so on the southwest coast of the UK. Yeah.
So do you touch base? Like, do you go home often? Do you still have family there?
Yes. Yeah. My parents are in Bournemouth. My sister's up north in York, and my best friend's in London. So I aim to go back once a year now.
So are you seeing, when you do go back, are you seeing trends? And if the trends are there, do you feel like they're more prevalent here in North America, I'll say, for lack of a better term, or Vancouver or Canada, and London is catching up? Or is it the other way around? The UK is really they're ahead of where we're at in regards to like veganism and plant-based and more conscious eating.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. It's changed. I think when I moved out here, I found here was so ahead of everything, like West Coast, Vancouver. Every restaurant had vegan options, and it was, like coming to heaven, really.
Yeah.
And now in the last couple of years, I wouldn't say Vancouver's behind at all, but I'd say the UK and London, like, veganism has just kind of taken off over there. It's got so popular. I don't know if you've heard of Veganuary.
No.
So every January, it's a movement where people kind of pledge to go vegan for the month.
Wow.
It started in the UK, and it's become more of a worldwide thing now, but we've seen so many changes in the UK with like big brands just veganizing versions of their products, and it's like there's a new one every month or every week almost. It's crazy. So it's just getting so much more popular. So I think the UK is kind of definitely it's taken off a lot there.
not to change speed so much here, but I'm so intrigued by what would be your take on where we see trends and food going, especially in the plant-based and the vegan world. So looking at something like, I mean, we'd be ignorant not to discuss the success that we've seen with things like Beyond Meat, the Beyond Meat burger, and other I'm not sure how you would phrase it, but imitation meats, or is that what you would call it, or?
Yeah, I guess so. Meat substitutes.
Meat substitutes.
Yeah.
So what is your take on that? Because before you answer, my position on food in general is I am very much an omnivore, but I'm a very selective omnivore. So if I'm going to eat meat, beef or lamb or pork, I only want it to be from certain sources and certain sources that I know and have vetted myself.
Sure.
So the option for me to go to any restaurant and have a steak are very limited because I don't know where they're going to get their steaks from. And even if I do, I haven't been to the farm myself. Whereas the meat that we consume in our home, I've been to the farm, I've met the farmer, all those things. So I feel for myself, it's a much more, if I can kind of pat myself on the back, it's a much more conscious way of eating when I do consume meat, because I know a roundabout way the impact that purchase is having on the environment and the economy. Yeah. So when you see something like Beyond Meat becoming so successful, pardon me, I look at like, why aren't we just focusing on eating whole foods? Why does it have to be an imitation of something? Why is that such a popular thing, and why is that a thing?
Yes, I really get where you're coming from, because one of the things I forgot to mention is that my focus, as well as being plant-based, is whole food, plant-based food.
The shameless plug again. Perfect. Check out the blog. There's no fake burgers on there.
Right.
And I'm not sitting here to poo-poo on the fake burgers, but it's just, I can't really comprehend. Like, if you're going to make a decision and a stance, and this is where you're gonna draw a line in the sand, why do you need to dip your toe in and flirt with the idea of this looks and feels and tastes and smells like a burger, but it's not a burger?
Yeah, and I can completely appreciate that. For me, I've tried a few of those burgers, and they taste nice, but I don't really, it's been so long since I've had meat that I don't want it, I don't crave it. I'm much more about whole food products, but I think it's a really good thing that they're there, because I think a lot of people now particularly do want to go more plant-based, they want to go vegan or vegetarian, but they really like the taste of meat. I don't think everyone finds it as easy to switch from meat to a vegan diet as some of us do. And I think it's really good that there are those options. And, if it means someone's having a burger, but they're not, an animal's not being killed, then, perhaps that's great. I think they can be very engineered and very processed, which is why, personally, they're not my favourite thing to have. And I wouldn't want anything that really looks or tastes like meat myself. Right. But I do think it's great that they're there for those that still crave that, because it can be quite a transition. Like, I remember really craving cheese. It's really hard to give up.
Cheese is so good.
Right? And I'm so grateful there are so many dairy-free alternatives now.
Yeah, even in the city, like with Blue Heron.
Blue Heron, yeah.
Fantastic.
Shout out
Karen.
Brilliant, yeah.
I just think it's interesting, and I don't judge anyone for doing it. Like you said, it can be a hefty transition to take, going from, say, consuming meat, even if you're just doing it a few days a week, not every day, but a few days a week, to then having nothing. That could be kind of your like gateway into kind of normalizing having a plant-based or a vegan diet. Yes. I guess for me, what I want to see more of with this movement, for lack of a better term, is more people like yourself doing what you do, which I think is so amazing, like flying the flag and educating people and helping them understand, like, this is what you can do with A, B, and C vegetable or fruit. It doesn't have to be just a black bean. It could be a black bean burger with quinoa or something along those lines, right? So I feel like it's up to us on platforms like this to take time to educate people and say, look, Beyond Meat burgers, great. If you want to do it. But just so you know, you can also do this, and head to my blog and check out my like 4 different burgers you can make with legumes or whatever it may be. So I look at the fake chicken and the fake beef as like it's like low hanging fruit. And I get it, because we all have a lot of things going on in our lives. But if we really want to be committed to something, let's educate ourselves on like what the actual impact is, why we're doing it. And I think there's more longevity than just grabbing something that's popular and then soon it'll be something else and something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I mean, I think on the back of that, like I don't know huge amounts about the specific environmental impacts, but I believe kind of another bonus for Beyond Meat and those types of I guess meat substitutes are that the environmental impact, I believe, is less than animal agriculture. But yeah, I think you're completely right. They're great to have as a kind of transition thing, or as a kind of, I guess, junk food type thing if you fancy them. But what I feel passionate about is really kind of encouraging people that, you know, whole foods and real foods, it's not about restriction and boringness. It's about the abundance that's already there in those foods. And, you know, there's restaurants here like the Acorn that do that so well. Like they just showcase lentils and things like that. And, you know, they don't need to be boring. They can be done amazingly, and everyone can cook those foods themselves. It's like you say, it's just a little more education around it, I think, and inspiring people to do it.
Yeah, it's time and it's effort. It is those things. But again, like I said, if you're really interested and committed to, sorry, if you're not interested, if you're committed to something, then like take that extra time and do those things and visit blogs such as yours and support others like it and educate yourself on like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, then I'm going to do it all the way. And I want to look at how I don't have to always just rely on, like, I don't want to keep crapping on Beyond Meat, but Beyond Meat burgers. I actually have had one and it was okay. But again, I struggle with like, why do we need to, if we're going to get rid of it, why do we keep needing to like imitate it in our lives? Do you know what I mean?
It's a really good point. I do think it's just, for a lot of people, it provides a really helpful crutch when they are kind of
for sure
going through that. I mean, full transparency, I haven't actually had a Beyond Meat burger.
No? I feel like you should have one.
I know, terrible vegan.
Oh my God. You're like shaming your own veganism. Yeah. Can you even call yourself a vegan if you don't have like a Beyond Meat burger membership of some sort? If you were going to have one, would you make it yourself, or would you go support like an A&W or someone else out there that's selling it?
I'd probably go support. I think Meat do them.
Yeah. Meat on. Yeah. So locally here in Vancouver, there's a couple vegan restaurants that have just taken off. That's something as well that I haven't shared this story ever on the podcast, I think on a public forum, but I have within my group of friends. I went to Meat, no problem with Meat. I think that what they're doing is really cool. Although I think there's this disillusion with some parts of the population that are getting into veganism or plant-based food or even vegetarian food. There's this idea that no matter what it is, as long as it's vegan or plant-based, it's healthy. And I've walked by some people at these restaurants, like Meat, for example. I'm like, dude, that is like very unhealthy. It's still fried in fat. It's still like it's not a healthy alternative. You would probably be a lot better having a grass-fed burger on a whole wheat bun with avocado and tomato, like at the end of the day, as far as like just nutrients density and what you're actually putting into your body. But I feel like because it is such a big term right now, it's so sexy and it's so cool, if it's vegan, people are like, oh, it's got to be good for me. I think that's one of the unfortunate kind of misconceptions. A vegan diet can be really healthy, but if you're living on burgers every day, it's or fries.
It's probably.
Do you know what I mean?
We all like fries, but it's.
So what would make up your? Let's talk about the website a bit. So what would be like your? I'm sure you have the analytics on this somehow, some way, but the recipes that you feel like are uber healthy and just people are, for lack of a better term, eating it up. Like people are just always like either posting or reposting or commenting on these recipes that you've developed and you feel like are just smashing it. People are just really, really intrigued. And are these ones that listeners that may be entertaining the switch could access themselves and then start introducing into their own lives?
I would say my most popular recipe, the standout one that's just gets used again and again, is 3-ingredient oatmeal waffles, which is oats, bananas and plant-based milk. So they're really quite dense waffles, but I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if it's 3 ingredients or what, or if it's just so simple, but it's my most popular blog post by far. Yeah? Yeah.
And how long have they been up on the blog?
About a year and a half, I think.
Yeah.
And constantly, like, it never leaves the number 1 spot.
Wow. Walk us through the recipe. Are we blending the oats? Are we grinding? What are we doing with it?
Yeah, so you stick the oats in like a high-speed blender, like a Vitamix or something, and just blend them into
like a flour?
Yeah, into a flour, like a rough flour. Yeah. And then you add banana and milk in, then blitz the whole thing in the blender, and then pour it into a waffle iron.
Wow.
Use a bit of coconut oil or something to oil the iron. And that's it.
amazing. And it's something like proprietary is yours. I'm always intrigued by these blogs. I have another friend. I don't know if you would discuss this. Darren Macy is a good friend of mine. She runs Running on Real Food, which is a plant-based diet out of Vancouver as well.
Yeah.
She's transitioned from working 9 to 5 to now working full-time with her blog, which I think is amazing. So when I met you, I just thought, this is so cool. And if you're listening, use Elizabeth and use Darren and other like them, like reach out to them and ask them how they did it, because it can be done. Like you literally are proof that you can take something that you're passionate about and make it a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Just have to do it.
So with these recipes, I'm a big believer that there's no such thing as an original idea. Like even ideas that I have for my clients, somehow, somewhere, some way, I've been inspired by something that I saw.
Yes.
And it's now coming through me in a certain way. So for you with like these waffles, is it something you saw and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to put a twist on it and make it my own? Or is it literally you were in the kitchen one day and you're like, oh, what about this, this, and this? And it just ended up working out.
For the waffles specifically, I saw it was inspired by something else. I saw another blogger do a similar thing but it was a slightly different combination. I don't think it was just 3 ingredients. And I just found the recipe once, just really liked it, could never find it again. Couldn't remember it, but I knew the base was like, it was like oats and banana. Yeah. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to kind of recreate it and do my own spin on it.
Amazing.
Could never find the original recipe to give them, like, to say,
right,
you
to give them like,
me.
Yeah. Maybe it never actually existed. Maybe it just like came to you. Yeah, maybe it just came to you in a dream. Who knows, right? You never know.
But a lot of it is inspiration from others. I think in this type of world, it's impossible to come up with completely purely from your own head 100% of the time. Sometimes it happens, but you do get inspired by others.
Yeah, I still think even then, like even if we come up with something in our mind, you walk by something and subconsciously it leaves an imprint on you somehow, some way. Do you know what I mean? Or you listen to a song, or you see or you see another blog, whatever it may be. I'm just a big believer that there is no original ideas, and we should just get over the idea of trying to protect things and just share it. Yes. And let people make their own version of it, whether it's music or art or food, whatever it may be. Absolutely, yeah. So you mentioned that you don't come from a culinary background. No. What was that like for you? Was there a bit of imposter syndrome when you first started out? Was there battling that a bit? And do you now consider yourself to be a culinary expert?
No, definitely not.
No?
I'm a home cook. I would class myself as a home cook. Okay. Someone once called me a chef, and it was very flattering, but it made me cringe because I thought, I'm not. The imposter syndrome, if I'm completely honest, I don't think it ever fully leaves. Mm-hmm. I grew up with parents, thanks mum and dad, who always cooked. And I think that was a huge, huge helpful part of it, really, because I grew up knowing how to do basic things and I wasn't afraid of being in the kitchen, which it was only recently that I realised some people genuinely are. They just don't know how to put a recipe together, and they really find it challenging. And that's really fair, but it's just something I never knew because I was so used to it growing up. But yeah, no culinary background at all. So at times I do definitely feel a little sort of, what right do I have to be here? Mm-hmm. But it does seem to be a trend right now that there are a lot of home cooks and food bloggers appearing without culinary backgrounds and training. And at the end of the day, if we want to share food and encourage people to cook for themselves more, I think everybody has a right to do that, really. How
have you found that community to be? I know that there's chefs that have been on the show and clients that I have that find this industry can be at times very siloed, meaning just that term, like people not sharing, people not wanting to share, people not really treating our industry like a community. And that isn't true for everyone, but it is true for a lot of people. Yeah. And they really just operate within their 4 walls, and that's it. Do you feel like yourself, do you feel alone at times, or do you feel like you feel that this is something that is real for you in regards to a sense of a community? There's this food blogger, like are there Facebook groups where there's people like you that get on and share ideas and kind of help each other through challenges and wins? Does this exist, or is it just Elizabeth at home taking photos in the right sunlight and writing up a blog post and posting it? I'm
not going to lie, a lot of the time it is. Yeah. I think blogging of any description is probably very isolating at times. Mm-hmm. There are also a lot of groups though, Food Bloggers of Canada is a great free organisation to become a member of. I think they're based actually here in Vancouver.
Oh wow.
My interaction with them's been all online, but they're fantastic with resources and just kind of group chats and general support really for the food blogging community.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's something that I'm finding more and more as I kind of become more in this, get through this industry more, is that you do make contacts with other bloggers and things like that. And the blogging world particularly, I think, especially with food blogging, is quite friendly, which is what I've found so far. It is, like I say, isolating at times because inherently you're on your own taking photos and writing and creating recipes. It's not by nature the most social activity ever.
Right.
But the more I do it, the more I do find it's quite supportive, and you get invited to events and things like that, and it's actually quite lovely. Yeah. I think it's growing as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask you, have you ever heard of I've heard it in podcasting. I don't know if I think actually it started in blogging. It came to podcasting. It's called the Carnival idea. So the idea is, and I have yet to do it, but I think it's a great idea. So if you have a podcast based in and around food and hospitality, hit me up. But the idea is I host you on my podcast and then you host me on your podcast. We get like 6 people together and we just do this kind of, sharing or featuring each other on each other's pages or podcasts. Has that ever come across your radar? Someone saying like, hey, do you want to do a post on my site? I'll do a post on your site. And the idea is you organically are getting exposed to, I'm assuming like tens of thousands of followers that you wouldn't before. And it's really that idea of sharing that space. That's something that either you've come across or would be interested in doing, if anyone's out there listening.
Yeah, I think it's something I'd be interested in doing. It's something I've heard of. I haven't tried it myself yet, but I have heard of other people doing it, and it does seem to create quite a bit of momentum, and you kind of get more exposure from it, and it broadens, I guess, the horizons of the people who are reading your content or listening or something like that. I think it's really helpful. I
envision it's almost like the virtual way of cooking in the kitchen with someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like what a cool thing that is to share, hey, this is my recipe, and showing someone in real time in your own kitchen or in their kitchen. But then if we don't have that ability, is there someone right now who's in Russia who has a food blog who's listening and they're like, wow, I'd love to do that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're speaking to a whole different population, but you're sharing so much at the same time with each other. I think that to me is when we break down food and hospitality in this space, that's what it is all about. It is that community. And the more we can do to embrace that and encourage it and facilitate it, that's where I see, whether it's veganism or plant-based or whatever it is, that's where I see like big quantum leaps in what we're doing. Yeah,
for sure. I think you're so right. It's creating that sense of community, isn't it? And like I say, blogging can be by its nature very isolating. So feeling like you've got someone else in the kitchen with you, or just feeling like you're cooking together, anything that brings that sense of togetherness, I think is really important. And
have you ever done a live Q&A with your followers?
I haven't yet, no.
Oh, you should do it.
Yeah?
Yeah. You should start.
It's on the list.
Yeah, definitely. Just something very casual, like nothing formal. Just literally turn your phone on yourself and do an Instagram live or a Facebook live. And I think that's because for me, what I found with this podcast and with my business is the more they can get a sense, they being your community or with consulting with my clients, the more they can get a sense of like who you are as a person, they're just going to invest even more in you. And then you can also hear from them as well and get feedback of like, what do you guys actually want to see more of? Or what are you looking to learn? And I think that's I feel like it's our responsibility again with platforms like this to do that for our communities. Otherwise we're just constantly feeding, for lack of a better term, what we think they want to hear, as opposed to like, hey guys, like, what do you want to learn this year? Like, what are you looking to learn? What's your biggest challenge right now for me in business, or for you, what's your biggest challenge with bridging that gap between, a vegetarian diet to a vegan diet? Let me know how I can help you. And then is it like, I'm sure you have these on your website, I don't know, like meal plans and that kind of stuff. And side note, I feel like that's also a great way to monetize even further what you're doing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Meal prepping is, that's the challenge for so many, I think.
Yeah, totally, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But then if you can, again, get feedback from the community, what they really want, and then you just you give it to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I actually do. I say I don't do Q&As. I haven't done Q&As as such yet. I do the polls quite often.
Oh, nice.
In
Yeah.
my Instagram stories, and I find those are quite helpful because you give people two definite options.
Yeah.
And they pick one.
I feel like that's how I try to. We try to raise my wife and I try to raise our daughter. Is like we want to give her the power of like understanding what life choices. But we don't want to give her 12. We'll give her 2. It's like. It's pasta or it's pizza. It's not like 58 items.
Yeah, pick one.
Yeah, you pick one of the two. Pick one of the two. Going back a bit to that imposter syndrome, going back a bit to the very matter of fact that you don't come from a background of, you weren't cutting your hands in kitchens for 25 years. You didn't burn yourself with oil. You didn't have to wear a silly white hat. So with that, what has been some of the steepest learning curves that you yourself have witnessed in this adventure of becoming who you are today? Like what have been some things you're just like, wow, I had no idea how involved it was to get this to that, meaning people don't understand what it takes to take a whole halibut and break it down, and then you have this beautiful piece of halibut on your dish, for example. So for you, has there been anything that you have gotten into that you were completely ignorant to before in regards to what it took to get to that point?
You know, what I would say is food styling. Like,
right.
I have such admiration for anyone who plates food, and how do they do it? How do they make it look so good?
I don't know. I don't think it's real, but yeah.
But like in restaurants, when you go like to some, again, I'm going to shout out the Acorn again, but like when you go somewhere like that and like it's a work of art that comes out, I can't do that. I don't know how they do it. Like just styling food to get it looking presentable in my photos, that has been a huge challenge.
I think tweezers. I think that's. Do you invest in tweezers?
Tweezers, tack, like white tack to make things stick down.
Oh,
they just
right.
won't stay put.
Right.
Yeah, that's all of it. Brushes to brush the oil. It's ridiculous the amount of stuff that's involved in making food look pretty for a camera.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine it's even harder in a restaurant, but like that's been quite a skill to learn.
Yeah, I guess in a restaurant it is, because everything's so quick and fast, but that's what the good restaurants, not the good restaurants, the great restaurants do, is the last dish, pardon me, looks just like the first dish. Do you know what I mean? Those are the great restaurants, the ones that you can always depend on, whether it's service or like you said, the finished product on a plate. It's always consistent. That's the key, is consistency. Yeah. Or at least an effort to remain consistent. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's gonna vary at times, as I'm sure if we went through my work or through your work, there'd be a few of those, like
just a few,
not too proud of that one. Do you know what I mean? But that's what makes it real, and that's what makes it fun and exciting. Yeah. Let's quickly hit pause for a minute. We're gonna refresh the camera, and I'm gonna fill my water. We'll come right back. Okay. Some good mics and a good recorder. Yes. I highly recommend it. Okay, we are back. We talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about tools in the kitchen, like tack.
Yeah, like do you call it blue tack in this country?
I don't know if I think I called it. I haven't used it since probably I was a kid making presentation stuff for school. But we called it like sticky tack. Sticky tack. There we go. Yeah, but yeah, it's usually blue or white. Yeah. It's like a gum consistency, and you're using it so stuff doesn't fall down.
God's gift to food photographers and stylists.
I know there's people out there that right now are either interested in getting into what you do as a full-time thing, or it is their side hustle right now, or it's just a passion project. And we mentioned how difficult it is to make food look good sometimes. Can we quickly break down 3 things that you feel need to be done in a photo to make it look good? Like, what's something accessible and easy that we could do, say with our iPhones, to take a photo of a dish that's going to make it look a lot less, anemic?
A lot less ugly. Yeah. And I'm by no means an expert on this. But from my experience, I would say natural light, always natural light. Right. Turn off any yucky artificial lights, because they're going to give it all an orange glow. If you're using an iPhone especially, you want to do it, not sure what the phrase is, but like either over top or straight on. You don't want to try any sort of 45-degree angles.
So like a bird's eye view, or like a portrait, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. 90 degree.
Okay, sure.
Whatever it's called. Basically, the overhead shot is really popular. It's the one you see everyone doing in the restaurants.
Yeah.
And then sticking on Instagram later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best angle. iPhones don't do well with sort of 45 degrees.
Right.
So I would say a flat lay, that's what you want to call it, looks good for food, and incorporate as much colour as you can. So if you've got the most miserable brown looking lentil curry,
Right.
because the lentils, no one
They're
can
not
photograph
sexy.
lentils.
Yeah.
They're not sexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just
You can't
not.
like sear a lentil.
No.
You know what I mean? You can't
They
add
can-
color to it.
Yeah, right. They
Yeah.
can taste good. They can't look good for
Yeah.
the most part.
Yeah.
Add like sprinkle some like green or red spice or herbs or something
Right.
on it, like chilies or parsley,
To make
and
it
that will
pop
just
a bit.
pop it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, something to make it pop. Oh, and can I give a fourth one?
Please. You
Am
can
I
keep going.
allowed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is your show. You just
I
keep
might be here
going.
forever.
Yeah.
Use neutral plates. Let
Right.
the food speak in terms of color, I would suggest.
I think that's something that's so cool, and what we're seeing a shift in hospitality, in restaurants and hotels and bars, restaurants, cafes, is people are spending way more time, and I hate to think it's because of Instagram, but it probably is, but way more time on their tableware. And there's some gorgeous tableware, especially here in BC. For those of you that aren't aware, like the Sunshine Coast is an area here where there's a lot of ceramic artists that are doing some amazing things. Do you have a certain brand or a certain style of plate that you like that we can shout out to shoot on, or is like a bowl or a plate you like, I always like to shoot on this plate, or always like to shoot with this bowl?
You know, I actually don't. I end up buying stuff from CB2 quite often, but
Okay.
I would really, really honestly like to find a local ceramic.
Oh,
supplier.
I'll send you a couple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you've got recommendations, because I'd like something a little more unique looking. Still a neutral color.
Yeah.
Yeah, unique.
Before you leave, if they're here, sorry guys, I'm just gonna do this little bit of business here. Before you leave, if they're here, my friends Max and Joe, they own Fable Home, and Fable Home is a tableware business. So they operate at the same office as here.
Yeah.
And they actually sponsor my dinner series. So all the plates that we use for my dinner series are from them. They're from Portugal. They're beautiful. So shout out Fable Home. Check them out online. Please buy all of their products. And really unique pieces. So I'll introduce you to them to see if there's something you guys can do together.
Yeah.
Unless CB2 you want to hit her up with the sponsorship, then do that. Right?
Wow, yeah, why not?
Yeah, exactly. That's something I also found really interesting, and it happens to me not as often as I would assume would happen to you, because of that reach that you have with your blog, meaning exposure that you get for certain brands or products. Is there anything or anyone that you wouldn't do business with? I've had a few people reach out to me and they want to run ads on my podcast. We don't do ads.
Yeah.
We did for a little while, but I just felt it was kind of like disingenuous. Is there anyone that has reached out to you? We don't have to name any names, but have you come across that where you're like, this doesn't feel right? It doesn't really, like you said before we turn the mics on, it has to kind of fit the sound and the vibe of what you're creating holistically.
Yeah.
So have you come across that to date, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, for sure it's happened. I mean, it probably goes without saying that like if a meat supplier reached out, I wouldn't.
Right. So you're not helping at some cattle farm.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I have had brands reach out to me, and it's just not been a good fit. And I always just, politely get back to them and say, thanks so much. But I really specialize in like whole food cooking. And I had one, which I wouldn't name, but they were quite a big vegan candy company.
Okay.
And, love that they're doing that. I love that the option is out there, but it just doesn't fit with what I'm doing. I probably wouldn't eat them myself. And I'm not going to be incorporating vegan candy into a whole food vegan recipe.
Right. Do you think every blogger has a price though?
Yeah,
if they came to you with like $250,000?
Oh, I don't know. God, that'd be hard to refuse, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And I wouldn't judge you for doing it. I don't know if I judge myself. I've never come across someone offer me $250,000 to put their product along with my name, but it's something where I look at this format of this platform that you've created for yourself, that so many other people have created for themselves. It really is a way for you to like afford a lifestyle, do certain things.
Yeah.
And if someone comes to you with a big fat check, but maybe they use palm oil, and you really don't want them cutting down the rainforest, so you're not going to support someone that uses palm oil. It's like what I guess the question I'm asking you is, as a blogger and as someone that now runs their own business, are there hills that you're willing to die on and ones that you aren't?
Yeah, I think I definitely have my limits with things. Like the palm oil one was quite a good example. I'm definitely not perfect in terms of doing my research and knowing
Exactly.
about every, because
Yeah,
you can only do what you can do. But
Yeah.
if I know a company is really unsustainable
Mhm.
and it really doesn't fit with my message and what I'm doing, like I don't think I could sleep at night if I said yes to that.
Yeah. No matter how fat the check was.
Yeah, I think so. I don't want to. I say this, and then tomorrow
Someone's like, I have $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're cutting down all the palm trees,
Yeah.
but here's $500,000.
No, that ethics is. I think ethics are too important.
Yeah.
To me.
But it's also difficult as well, I feel, that in a position like you're in, because there's so much of a public eye on what you're doing. And if you do partner with X company and someone decides to, do their due diligence and dig deep, and all of a sudden the CEO used to have like a chicken fighting business, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, why, how are you supporting them? They had the CEO. You're just like, come on guys, like I had no idea, obviously. But it's so easy for people, I find, nowadays, because of how accessible we all are, is to like find the information and then attack. Have you ever dealt with any kind of nasty feedback or any challenges? Oh no,
not so far.
Okay.
And I think,
knock on wood.
Yeah, right. Tomorrow I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah.
I think because my blog is still relatively new and relatively small, I'm not hugely in the public eye with
How
it.
do you define small?
I mean, my monthly page views on my blog just under 10,000.
Right. So that's small?
I mean, for me, it's fantastic because I just wanted to get to 5,000 once upon a time.
So you've literally doubled it.
Yeah, I'm very happy with
that. But
that.
for some reason, and it's something that I work a lot with my clients on, is mindset and language that we use.
Yeah.
So for some reason, you still, if I can, kind of play consultant here with you a bit. It's like, why do we even allow for that to be a word that we use to describe something that's literally double what our goal was?
Yeah, I know.
But yet now we call it small because we're probably comparing ourselves to someone else. I think that's something that we cannot do.
Yeah.
All we can do is look at like, oh my God, my goal, let's say a year ago, was 5,000. We're now at 10,000. That literally is a quantum leap.
Yeah.
In like gaining exposure and productivity and whatever other positive words that we want to use. But for so many of us, we play on this level of like, oh no, it's like, it's not a lot. That's a lot. Like that is a lot. 10,000 people. If we brought 10,000 people that would look at your website and put them in a parking lot, you'd be like, that is a damn lot of people.
Be blown away. It's great. And I think now, just to not go off on too much of a tangent, but I think I've seen a shift in the last year or so, or maybe 6 months, towards particularly like brands and things like that wanting to work with slightly smaller influencers and bloggers and things like that, but people who have an engaged audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think when you are a little on the smaller side is easier to do. Like when you explode, it's kind of hard to maintain that engagement, I think. And I think that's more important now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of businesses, especially restaurants or cafes that experience success and then either franchise out their model or just grow to multiple locations. It's like, how do you hang on to that, that je ne sais quoi that existed in that space, that day one, that original one? Like, how can you do it? And it's challenging, but as long as you're committed to it, I think it can be done. But it definitely is like, how do you not, and this is something I discuss a lot, is like, how do you not dilute it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So how do you not dilute your message when you're talking to 50 million people a day?
Yeah.
Right? Where it's maybe they're a little less engaged. They're not taking time to truly like invest and educate themselves in the information you're sharing.
Yeah.
Whereas now you could argue you have a much more captive audience. And I know there actually is, there's like sociological studies on this. Like there's a certain number, I don't know if you know of this. Yeah, I feel like you've read more books than me, but
it's only because of my English accent. It fools you into thinking
and you have glasses. It's because you have glasses too.
Right.
No, there's a number. Does this ring any bells with you? There's a number that like if a population hits this number, then that population will split into two different groups.
No, I've not heard that.
Do you know what I mean? So there is. I was looking at this at the time when I was looking to invest into gyms, gymnasiums, like CrossFit gyms. And like as soon as you get your membership to a certain point, that's kind of the point you need to then open up a second location. Because within that location, what will happen is there'll be like a segregation, if you will, of the groups that what's the word? I'll use a collective, for lack of a better term. That collective will then break if the number even exceeds like one or two past. I want to say it's like 200 or 300. I wonder if there's any studies that exist for online communities like that. Like where does that the feeling change? Where does it shift?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've not heard of that before. I've definitely heard that as your kind of following, for want of a better word, goes up, engagement decreases. So I think you see that with quite a lot of bloggers and things who say they've got like 20,000 Instagram followers or something. I think once you kind of get past that, engagement does drop quite a lot, and I don't know why. I don't know why that is.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Is everyone cool with like being real with the whole Instagram followers thing? I've actually had a conversation with someone. I didn't know that you could actually do this. This person, I'm not going to say who you are, but you're listening and I know you're out there. This person has 20,000 followers. Is that a lot? It could be. I don't know. It's a lot to some people and it's not a lot to other people. But it's not real.
No,
someone just went in there and did that for her. Like they literally asked her, how many followers do you want? And they went and arranged it somehow. So for me, like you said, we use the word engagement. It's like anything else. I'd rather have people that are engaged in what I'm doing, investing in what I'm doing, than either not real people or people that are just kind of like passively taking in what I'm putting out. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that, come on, people, like, let's just be real with our numbers.
Yeah, and Instagram's a dangerous one in that sense because, you know, we're all guilty at it. Like, I can look at someone's account and be like, man, they're doing so well.
Yeah.
They've got so many followers and there's like one comment on every post and you're like...
That's not real.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, again, how much weight we put on followers.
I know.
Like, why does it even matter?
Exactly. There are so many people out there, and I'm not just saying this, I think it's genuinely true. There are so many people out there who have a handful, you know, we're still on the Instagram subject, but they have a handful of Instagram followers and they're running like, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure businesses. Like, it doesn't, a follower doesn't equal $1.
Yeah, no, it's the content. It's what you're doing and what you're offering to the people that are following. And
being of service, I think.
Being of service is huge.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have listened to the podcast at length. So I do usually like 45 minutes or an hour and a bit. But at the end of every podcast, near the end of every podcast, I should say, I ask every guest 2 questions. So I have for you, Lizzie, the 2 questions that I ask every single guest. It is now your time to sit under the lamp and answer the questions. The first one is the half a dozen have-tos. So the idea is I need from you 1 to 6 items that you've experienced in your life, food related or not, that you feel like our listeners have to experience. A piece of art you've looked at, a trip you've taken, an album you've purchased, a concert you've been to, a sweater you own, a store you've purchased from. What are 1 to half a dozen? So you can do 1 or you can do 6 of things you experience in your life that you feel like our listeners have to experience.
Okay. All right. Gosh, on the spot. Jumping into a freezing lake.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
A little cold water therapy.
Definitely. Ideally after a sauna.
Okay, so like hot, cold,
Yeah, otherwise it's just miserable. But there's nothing like it. If you don't die, you'll feel great.
Yeah.
That would definitely be 1. I'm in 2 minds over whether to say this. My parents might be listening.
I hope they're listening. You're on a podcast. Come on, Mom and Dad.
Go skinny dipping.
Okay. Wow.
It's too early in the morning to say that. Yeah.
Did you do this in the cold lake?
No. Oh gosh. No, I did.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a story about this. This was in Sweden.
Of all places.
Yeah, traditional Swedish sauna. Went there with my best friend, and it's, you know, you are nude in the sauna. It's just how they do it. And then we were told you run out to the lake, which they'd kindly cut a hole in the ice for us.
Perfect.
You know, it was that cold.
Wow.
So we were both kind of like, okay, it's now or never. We've never done this before. We're just going to throw the towels off and go for it. So we ran down this jetty, jumped into the lake, screamed as you do, jumped straight out again, ran back up the jetty and realised there was a long row of elderly Swedish naked men sitting outside the sauna watching us.
They're just like, perfect. This is perfect. That's too funny. Oh my God. You're like, gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you and good night.
Yeah. Wow. That's too funny.
Yeah. So that's, I recommend doing that.
I can't remember. I definitely have skinny dip. I haven't done the cold water. I take actually a cold shower every day. I don't do a hot shower. I've been doing that for like over a year. It's not fun.
No.
It's actually terrible, and I avoid it. Sometimes I just sit there and look in the mirror with the water running, and I go, "What are you doing? Just get in there." But I agree. I think there's something that's so beautiful about like resetting the system and that kind of shock, and just like, you won't die. I mean, don't stay in there for an hour. Like, get in and get out. 5 minutes is what I do in the shower. And just, you feel so invigorated. And for me, starting my day off like that, it's like, okay, if I can do that,
Yeah.
I can do pretty much anything that day throws at me.
Yes.
And good for you for getting down and throwing the towel off and giving those men a little show.
Yeah. Unintended, but
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes for a good story.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? I would say travel to Japan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What about it?
Oh, gosh. Has to be done. I loved it. I would go back.
The
in a
food, the
heartbeat.
people, the scenery.
The food. As a vegan, it was challenging.
Yeah.
But it's totally doable if you just do a bit of research. Everything matcha flavored is incredible. Ice cream, so much rice, and what is weird was we ate so much out of It's awful. I almost shouldn't admit to this, but we ate out of the 7-Elevens a lot.
Yeah.
Because have you been to Japan?
I haven't. It's on my list. I have a friend who just moved there.
It's wonderful. It's just like nowhere else. But 7-Elevens are everywhere, and bizarrely, they actually have quite a few vegan things. So if you're really stuck, you can get these like rice and bean balls.
Oh,
and
so good.
you just live off them, and I could still crave them now. I don't know why, but
Oh,
aside from that, it's an amazing, amazing country.
Yeah. Where did you visit?
We visited Tokyo, Kyoto, Nara, and Kanazawa.
When was this?
About 2 years ago now.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
pretty fresh.
Yeah, my
Oh,
partner
amazing.
was sent out there for work, so I went to join him. We just thought, once in a lifetime.
Yeah,
His
totally.
flight was paid for, so
Wow.
I've never been. It was my first time in Asia, and I've never been anywhere that felt like an alternate reality before.
Yeah, just so different, right?
Yeah, standing in the middle of Tokyo on that, I've forgotten what the crosswalk is called, but the huge one that's featured in Lost in Translation. It's really well known. And just standing there, and it's the sounds from every direction.
Right.
There's billboards kind of screaming at you, which you can't imagine in this country. And it's so many people and so noisy and so different to hear.
But beautiful at the same time.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Temples in every corner.
Yeah, so cool.
And just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's talking on my list. Like I said, I have a friend, shout out Koji, who just left Vancouver to go study over there, study culinary education over there. So yeah, I'm looking to head over. He's there for 2 years. So I have a 2-year window with someone who actually has history from there. His parents are from there, so he knows it well. He speaks the language. So I got to get over there and just dive into it. And they have, I'm pretty sure it is true, they have the most Michelin star rated restaurants out of any country.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I could believe it.
Yeah. So like saving the bankroll to go over and just ball out there. But I'll definitely hit up 7-Eleven and try those rice balls. Definitely.
It's got to be done.
Are there any other have-tos that you want to share with the listeners?
I would say from personal experience, live in another country if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never even asked, what brought you here originally and why Vancouver?
Yeah, adventure.
Okay.
I wasn't happy in the jobs I was doing. I always wanted to travel with work, and it wasn't happening. So I saw that you could get a 2-year Canadian travel visa.
Yeah.
So I went for it, and my partner, fortunately, was up for it as well. I wanted to go to the East Coast. I wanted to be in Montreal, Toronto, New York area.
Yeah.
And he's a rock climber, so
he said no.
Said no. Yeah, basically.
And
we ended up here. And I mean, we basically thought, if we're going to go, let's go as far away as we can. We might as well go to the other side. We'd never been to the West Coast before, and here we are, no regrets.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I feel like the blog sounds better. Like Montreal is beautiful, and that's nice, but I feel like it just wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
I like the name of the blog now.
Vancouver with Love.
Yeah.
Oh, and the name behind that blog was started because that was our blog to keep in touch with friends and family.
Oh, okay. So if we do like a deep dive on there, are there old posts that aren't related to?
No,
oh, you've gotten rid of them.
I've moved it to its own domain now. It's a Tumblr blog.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Any others that you want to share?
So have-tos.
Yeah.
Okay, food related. You have to try a Yellow Basket Baking vegan croissant.
A Yellow Basket Baking.
Yeah,
vegan
Yellow
croissant.
Basket Baking. They're a Vancouver company. You find them at farmers markets.
Okay.
And I think Nada sell them, Blue Heron sell them. They're amazing. And I can appreciate maybe not as exciting if you eat dairy, but for a vegan, finding a croissant that actually tastes, her stuff is incredible.
Yeah?
She's such a talented baker.
What's her name?
Molly, I believe.
Molly. Shout out Molly. Let's get her on the show.
She's brilliant.
We should do some live tasting of that. Would sound the crunch of the croissant would sound awesome. Yeah, awesome or awful. Those are amazing ones, and I love that you took some time to shout out a local company. We'll definitely put her in the show notes. Yeah. The last question I have for you, Elizabeth, is the half a dozen haven't yet.
Oh.
So similar to the first one in regards to I need 1 or 6. You can do 1 or 6 things that you've yet to experience, kind of like a bucket list, if you will. So what hasn't been done in Lizzie's life that you feel like needs to get done or you want to get done before that day comes?
Oh, so much. I'd like to write a cookbook. I think
Amazing.
I remember saying this to you when we met.
Yeah.
You said, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to write a cookbook.
Yes, I do remember that now.
Yeah, I'd love to
Okay,
do that.
so where are we at?
Well, I haven't written one yet, but
When did we
long as
meet?
prep.
How long ago do you think?
A couple of months.
Yeah? It's
Yeah.
safe to say 90 days?
Maybe, yeah.
So what could we have done in the last 90 days to get us closer to a cookbook? Just hypothetically.
Well, I mean, I could argue that my blog recipes are all
Okay.
preparation.
Okay. So could we maybe start carving out an hour of our day to start picking which one of those recipes could be?
We could indeed.
Yeah?
I do actually. I have a notebook where I do plan
Amazing.
sometimes ideas for it. It's something I want to do, and it's something I'm sure I will do one day. Just not quite there yet.
I love this question because for me it unpacks a lot of the guests, again, things that they haven't done yet. And I love it that now it's on record. This will live here forever.
I know, I realize.
So I want to be able to come back to this, and I want to be able to have a podcast with you where we are announcing the release
Excellent.
of, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That can be done.
You're totally holding me accountable.
Myself and 10,000 other people that are listening. So we are holding you accountable. We want you to do it.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to say 2021. 2021.
Oh, the year.
Year 2021. So by
So 21 years?
in the year 2021, at some point that gives you a plethora of months to choose
All right.
from.
All
We'll
right,
sit
deal.
down and book another podcast where we're talking about the release of the new cookbook.
Okay,
Yeah?
sounds good. Yeah.
Amazing. I actually have a couple of friends that have done it. So if you need publisher contacts, please let me know because I'd love to help
Amazing.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Or if you're listening and you like what Elizabeth is all about, please get in touch. We'll put her information in the show notes as well. Any other haven't yet? That's a big one.
It is a big one. The goal of what I'm doing is to help more people. I just want to inspire people to eat more plants, and I would love to do something more, I guess, philanthropic with that one day, reach a wider audience and give back more. At the moment, I'm still kind of working on building my business and building it to be viable and have that kind of independence to be able to go after bigger projects. But I think I've heard you say before you want to do big things and give back and help. And yeah, I don't exactly know what it looks like, but I want to do something.
Yeah, do it small. That's what I can say. Like my goal is to put healthy food into the mouths of everyone that can't afford it. That's my ultimate goal.
Exactly. Yeah.
And my number that I need to get to do that is $36.8 million. So I need to make $36.8 million so that I can afford to do that and have more of an impact on the world. But what I will say to you is what I started doing is like my dinner series. I started last year. I just did 6 dinners where I would take a local chef and a local farm and a local food-based charity and bring them all together and give the charity all the profits. And that for me started that momentum of like, okay, this is the feeling I want. I want more of it, of giving back. So maybe we could even collab on a dinner. Who knows? Do you know what I mean?
Sounds amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is what I was saying earlier about. This is what food is all about: is community and sharing and collaboration and coming together. And I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you at more depth to see if we could work on that. Any other haven't yet?
I would like to live in another city. I'd
Okay.
like to try that, and I just want to travel more. Really, take some big trips.
Yeah.
Southeast Asia would be nice. Travel all around Europe, which is shocking, as I'm English and I should have done that already.
Yeah.
Lots of travel. That's a big one for me. A large part of being a blogger for me is being able to work from anywhere.
Right.
That's important.
Yeah, it's so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and travel's a huge part of it. So getting to these different places while being able to work would be amazing, I think.
You can do it.
Yes.
You definitely can do
yes.
it. I want to take a moment to say thank you so much again for holding space for me in the podcast. And I want to say thank you for on that evening coming up and saying hello, as again, that was really flattering that you took the time to do that. And I feel like I've been at events where I've listened to someone speak or I've wanted to go and approach someone, but I didn't. And I'm like, why didn't I just go say hello? So I don't know if it's something you do often, but I'm very glad that you did. And I'm happy now to call you a friend. And I feel like anyone that comes on to this podcast is just that. They're a friend. So I'm looking forward to helping you and your business and your blog however I can, and myself and the listeners, So please do come back on the show, whether you have a book or you're not, or you don't. But you will have a
I'd
book.
love to. Yeah.
You definitely will have a book.
That's the idea. Yeah.
And before I let you go officially, if people do want to reach out, they do want to find out more information about you, and they want to link up, how best they do that?
Either by email, so elizabeth@vancouverwithlove.com, or via Instagram, so at vancouverwithlove, and yeah, I'm usually in either of those places.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as you do week after week. Your support means the absolute world to me. If it wasn't for you guys, this podcast would not exist, and I mean that. You know what to do until next time. Before I do that, actually, I'm Brad. That's Elizabeth, or Lizzie, right? This is a Half a Dozen Hospitality podcast. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Until next time, you know what to do. Be good and do good. We did it.
Yay.
Done.
We did it.
Easy, right?
So easy.
Yeah, great.
So much fun.